hard to start anywhere else except with the Hong Kong dollar. And to give a little bit of a context around, back to the point, different passports, different culture, different currency. So they use the Hong Kong dollar in Hong Kong, and they don't use the Chinese yuan. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening with the Hong Kong dollar. Can you maybe explain? It's pegged to the US dollar. What does that mean?
Just as you said, Austin, Hong Kong issues its own currency. And it's actually kind of weird because you have a Hong Kong dollar and it has the name of a bank. And it's usually HSBC. It's on the paper money, which is weird because you think a private company that. Anyways, the point is that Hong Kong issues their own currency, which is separate from China. Why that matters is a couple different reasons. Number one, there's a reputation with Hong Kong being better managed and more transparent than mainland China, which uses the yuan. So there's a trust with a Hong Kong dollar that, hey, this is as if it's a company. This is a well-run part of the world, Hong Kong. We're going to trust this currency. We're going to do trade in this currency. We're going to buy equities of this currency. And I'm going to hold this paper money in my wallet to buy a beer at night or whatever.
Yeah.
So Hong Kong has had this great reputation. And it's also convenient because it's pegged to the US dollar. There's lots of currencies throughout the world that are pegged to the US dollar. And essentially what that does for the local economy there is it makes them confident that if they're holding a currency that's pegged to the US dollar, which is the most powerful currency in the world, you can hold that currency for a while, whether it's 6 months, a year, and you're not going to lose a ton of value. You can
be able to redeem it for the same amount.
It's fungible. You can reliably go to a store, buy something. You can also wire money from one bank account to another, and there's a currency transaction, but it's 1-to-1 for the US dollar. So it could go on, but you get the point. It's a reliable source of storage of wealth for someone to live their life. So the reason why it's very important right now is because that peg may depeg. And what that means is that the Hong Kong dollar, it may lose the peg to the US dollar. And for a trader, a currency trader, or an investor, or someone who's listening to this podcast thinking like, why the hell should I worry about this currency in Hong Kong? And the best example is George Soros, Jim Rogers, and Stan Druckenmiller, who broke the Bank of England. And what they did is they looked at the currency arbitrage situation and they said, hey, if I take one bet against one currency and another bet against another currency, if those currencies flip, meaning the spread between the value of those two currencies exaggerates, then I can make a ton of money. And in Soros's case, when he broke the Bank of England, he made like $1 billion in a day or something crazy like that. This has happened all around the world many times with currency traders, but the Hong Kong dollar is a prime target for this situation because when, I don't want to forecast too much, but when the Hong Kong dollar depegs from the US dollar, there's going to be a lot of money or a lot of people that make an obscene amount of money.
And people that lose money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's two sides of that trade there, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a wipe out of wealth on one side, and there's going to be an enormous amount of wealth made on the other side. And to be clear, you don't have to go to Hong Kong to do this. You could be sitting in your basement in the middle of the US and you could be making this trade. So from an adventure capitalist kind of, hey, I'm going to do this from abroad, this is one of those situations that comes around in the world very rarely where you have a major currency that could have a major shift and you make a lot of money from it. So that's kind of where the Hong Kong dollar...
Timing is important because it's been talked about for the last couple of years. Bill Ackman's been talking about it. He said he took a position against the Hong Kong dollar like 2 years ago. Has that paid off yet? No. But we don't know when it's going to happen, but it's likely that it will happen.
Yeah, and Bill Ackman's a perfect example. He's this famous hedge fund guy. And by the way, I just read today, he's considering taking his hedge fund public. So the past couple of years, he's been very public on social media and Twitter, getting on these kind of public arguments with all kinds of like Harvard University and all that.
Yeah.
But part of his activist, strategy is that if he takes a certain bet on a company or a currency and he becomes more and more famous in the public eye, and then they say, oh, Bill Ackman's this guy doing X, Y, Z. And then they go, oh, also he took a trade against the Hong Kong dollar. That's going to help him because other people are going to copy that trade and it's going to pile on to the bet against or for the depeg of the Hong Kong dollar versus the US dollar. And again, it's my opinion that it will eventually depeg. I don't know when.
Yeah.
But when it does happen, it's gonna send waves through the financial system, especially in Asia.
One interesting kind of side note on that is that the Macau dollar is also pegged to the US dollar.
Yeah.
But what's very interesting is it's pegged a little bit differently. So I think it might be off. It's like 7.7 or 7.7 to 1 and like 7.8 to 1 or something like that. Macau dollars are worth a little bit less. And the reason that they do that is that when you go to gamble in Macau, you can only gamble in Hong Kong dollars, but everything else you transact in Macau dollars. And it's so close that for the most part, people will come over to Hong Kong or from Hong Kong, or they'll come from mainland or whatever. They'll convert to Hong Kong dollars, they'll gamble, and then they'll take those Hong Kong dollars, which are worth a little bit more than the Macau dollars, and they'll go and use those to buy food and all the other things. And so all the stores get a little bit of a spread because people, they just accept Hong Kong dollars and Macau dollars as the exact same thing, and they don't give you any difference, even though there is a difference in value.